Some of you already know Dr. Duke. It was a name that I heard over and over. I thought he was a politician. And then I found out he was a doctor. Then I found out why he's so well loved. And I just fell in love with this guy. He's the kind of doctor you always wanted. So just a little bit of background, he can say a bit more about it. But he went to UCLA. UCLA.
UCLA, yeah.
And I've been there. That's a huge complex. Okay, medical center. Plus, he served in the hospital in the emergency room. And he really enjoyed that high-intensity environment. But it started to dawn on him. A lot of these people wouldn't be here if they had preventative measures taken, medicines and such, or whatever, diets, nutrition, this and that. They would not have ended up in the hospital, in the emergency ward. And so that was the direction he took. And so we're just very pleased to have him here. It's very interesting. One of the reasons I like Dr. Duke is he ran for coroner and won. And what was his reason for it? Part of it was COVID. He wanted accurate information. He wanted to know where the money goes, this and that. And that sold me right away. So I meet with him about once a week over another organization. Each time I meet him, now he's soft-spoken, he's very nice, but don't let that fool you. This guy behind the scenes is doing good works for this community, our county. I can't divulge all that he's doing, but I can give you one project that's going to be very helpful. If, in the case that there's something very radical that happens to our economy, I'm saying if, he's in advance is collecting medicines for is it the top 10? Or you once said, for people like me, heart disease, diabetes, the ones that'll die if you don't get their meds. Okay, he's collecting those to make sure. But he's also getting a lot more meds stockpiled for our community. He's a man who's thinking in the future. There's some other things, but they're a little bit more morbid that he's doing, but he's got it all lined up. And so he's a joy to work with. Every time I mention his name, I must have been the last person on earth to know who he was. Because it ranges from, he's amazing. Oh, I love Dr. Duke. And you will too today. Let's please welcome Dr. Duke.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. And I really thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here. I wish I knew the person he just introduced. I don't know who that guy is. As he mentioned, I'm coroner. People are dying to find out about that topic. Sorry. But if I may, I'll just expand a little bit on my history a little bit, because for those of you who don't know who I am, and certainly I don't think anybody knows who I am, but at least you'll know what my basis and background is, that how I approach things and why I approach things the way I do. I'm a true native here. My great-grandfather homesteaded when Idaho became a state, so we go way, way, way back as a family. I graduated from Coeur d'Alene High School, but my dad had gone to UCLA. So I went to UCLA undergrad, grad school, and med school. And as Nels mentioned, I started off in a level 1, level 2 trauma center in Southern California, and it was a real busy ER. And it was during that time period where I was the only doc there. So it wasn't unusual to see 50 patients in a 12-hour shift. And they would be, really usually in quite dire straits. So it was very, very busy. And had a 38-year-old male come in full cardiac arrest one day, and I couldn't revive him. It was very unusual in that time period, 30 years ago, to have a 38-year-old pass away. And I thought, I've got one of the finest medical educations in the world, and no one can explain why this gentleman is lying here dead. What it did is that it challenged me to think outside the box right away about how in other words, I wasn't necessarily taught everything. So I started thinking right outside the box in the first few years. And I thought I'd much rather get involved in prevention, as Nels mentioned, but there really wasn't true prevention in that time period. And as I've gone on over the last 30 years in prevention, there still isn't really true prevention in established medicine. And so I did a lot of pioneering in that time period, and one of the first steps that I took was to do health risk appraisals in major corporations. And because, and what we would do is with a company, we'd come in, draw blood, do waist to hip ratios, and basically look at different parameters of the employees of the business, and we had some really huge customers. I don't know if you guys know much, but we had Southern California Edison, one of the biggest companies in Southern California, and Arco, Allergan, FBI. We had really a lot of big companies that we were doing this with. And one of them was the largest supplement manufacturer in the world, who had 800 to 900 employees on their assembly line. And we went in, and with Superior Medical Care, we saved them 30% on their healthcare costs. And they go, oh my gosh, we want to keep you forever. Because you can imagine 30% of 800 to 900 employees was a lot of money they were saving. And so we did that for a few years, and they said, well, why don't we move this out to our distributors and our customers globally? They had 3 to 5 million globally. Because if we make them healthier, it'll make our supplements look better, which was actually a very smart idea. And so we had a trial program from Europe that came in, some very influential people from Europe, and I thought, I don't know anything about the major causes of death in Germany and Austria and France and et cetera, et cetera. So I changed all of my presentation to gear specifically for those countries, and the program went very, very well. And so they decided to build a multi-million-dollar center of optimal health. I became medical director, and we ran 17,000 people from around the world through that program, customized to their country. And then what they said was, well, we can't send all 3 to 5 million to Southern California. Will you come to our country and teach? So I ended up teaching preventive medicine in 30 different countries around the world. Is that crazy? I couldn't have planned my life in my wildest imaginations. I mean, here's this little guy from North Idaho who knows squat, and some of the times I would just slap myself, like, how did I get here? What am I doing in, speaking on stages from around the world? And usually what I would be doing is I would be in front of thousands of people, many of them healthcare providers, talking about their major causes of death, their risk factors, how their religion influenced their health, their diet, their healthcare system, their lifestyle, and how to reduce those chronic diseases. And so while representing a multi-billion-dollar company. So, I mean, there was a lot of pressure on me to understand the natural side at a depth. And so the company paid me for 14 years. I did that for 14 years. The company paid me to go into tremendous depth scientifically on the natural side. So in other words, if there are, let's say, 100 studies concerning a particular phytonutrient, a lot of times people will say, well, I recommend this supplement because I've seen a couple of studies that say this, give it a try. Okay, well, when you're representing a multi-billion-dollar company, that's not what you do. If there were 100 published studies on a particular phytonutrient, we had to know all 100 and then analyze their structure. And basically, the first 20 might have been horribly designed. So it's like, okay, we're going to throw these out because we can't draw any conclusion from bad data. Then the next 20 might be, well, they used the wrong form of the plant. They used the wrong ingredients to bind it with, et cetera, et cetera. So we throw those 20 out. Then we get to the remaining 60, and of those 60, 50 point this way and 10 point this way. So the stance we took was the preponderance of literature is this way, this is what we teach. So I had to understand it at a tremendously deep level, in that time period. And so I started a company where what we wanted to do is come up with natural products that would equal or exceed pharmaceuticals if we can, and we just started that company when COVID broke out and everything shuts down. It wasn't a good idea to have a longevity company when everybody thinks they're going to die in a week, right? So it wasn't perfect timing. So what happened was we started Heart of Hope Health a couple of years ago because we wanted to be able to be outside the norm. We wanted to think differently. We wanted to be able to allow people to have the freedom to not be mandated into certain pathways so that we could allow people to have a choice, that they wouldn't be pressured into something. And so then came the idea of direct primary care, which 2 years ago I knew nothing about. And I wanted to share it with everyone here as business owners that it is a paradigm shift in medicine, the whole concept. And I'd love to be able to share some of those topics because we've been mandated and established healthcare system that we have right now to have everybody basically walk down one aisle. And anyone who jumps out of that aisle is kind of considered a rebel, or you're crazy, or you're doing unsubstantiated or unauthorized type steps. And I want to teach you that what I've learned in these last couple of years of how it's such an incredible paradigm shift that can tremendously enhance your health while simultaneously save you thousands of dollars per year. So I mentioned that to Nels, and he goes, yeah, bring it by, because a lot of people don't understand the direct primary care model, and I wanted to share that. Now, for those of you who are just interested in, can you say a couple of words about the corner office? I don't know why you'd want to talk about death. What's wrong with you? No, I'm kidding. Actually, I wanted to be a voice of truth as to why people were dying, and that's why I ran for the office. And when I walked into the office, it's like, oh my gosh, this is, from my perception, this is a corner office designed for Little Coeur d'Alene. This is not a corner office that's designed for a growing county that's got tremendous pressure applied to it. And so I saw immediately that there wasn't refrigeration for the county. There wasn't, we were dependent upon funeral homes, et cetera. We had 4 staff that were responsible 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for death investigations. And I'm telling you, that's a tough job. That's not something you can just hire somebody and say, hey, do you want to be a death investigator? I mean, they have to have a tremendous amount of knowledge, collect data, collect it accurately so that if lawsuits are involved, they know what they're doing. They haven't messed up on the evidence. And they're people who see the toughest of the toughest scenarios, stuff that we never see, and they see the toughest. And I thought, what I want to do is I want to expand the staff immediately, take pressure off of them, and the county commissioners have been incredibly supportive. They've allowed me to expand to 2 additional full-time staff, and we've hired an outstanding person out of Spokane, and Spokane didn't want to lose him, but he'd much rather live and work in Idaho. And we've just been granted another full-time position, and so the staff is good, but we needed infrastructure. Well, what I found out is I didn't want to burden the people of Kootenai County with a lot of additional tax for something like that. So I found out that if our office was accredited, meaning you follow through with the highest standards of corner offices in the nation, there is a plethora of grants available. And so I thought, okay, let's apply for accreditation. And so again, the county was very supportive of the concept. The commissioners have been wonderful to work with, especially 2 of them, and they've really gone to bat for our office a lot. And so there's something like 2,000 coroners in the United States, and they wanted all of them to be accredited 2 years ago, and there's only 41 accredited. So 41 people are competing for millions of dollars, right? We just found out last week we're going to be 42. Okay, we got accreditation. Yeah, it's really cool. We got accreditation faster than anyone's ever gotten it. In fact, the people who do the accrediting, they said basically the average time period or the quickest has been 18 months, and we did it in 5. So we're going to get our official piece of paper, and as soon as I get that piece of paper, I'm applying for grants so that we've got, right now Spokane does our autopsies, and they had a 20-year plan when they opened 5 years ago for their new building and facility, and right now they're overloaded in 5 years. And so we're going to have to expand into having our own refrigeration and own autopsy area, et cetera, because if something happens, I want to be able to handle it here. I don't want it to have us overrun from people on the outside. I want to be able to handle it here, and that's what we're gearing for. So there is the coroner's office. Sorry for the distraction, but people always ask me about it, so so that's where we're at. So now if I can get back to, and I want to spend a lot of time helping everyone to understand this concept, because, and so when I look at a patient, I just want to let you know, there's the established medicine side and then the natural side, okay? And on the established medicine side, there is truly some incredible science, okay? I mean, there have been people for decades who are incredible scientists who put together some amazing work to come up with some fantastic procedures, medication, equipment, et cetera. It is there, okay? But there's a lot of greed, graft, corruption, and problems in this whole system, as we all know, okay? But we don't want to throw everything out because there's some incredible stuff over here, okay? And on the natural side, there's some incredible science that hardly anybody knows because, you can't publicize it. There's not a lot of research money behind all of that, et cetera, but that's what I taught globally for 14 years. There's a lot of people who are well-meaning and try really hard. They're doing a lot of their own research. They're trying to come out with natural things, and they're trying to help people as much as they can in a natural way. But then there's greed, graft, corruption over here too. I mean, it's not as if everybody over here is, pure as the risen snow, ever fallen snow, okay? So what we're trying to be basically is the best of both worlds. We're trying to be able to, so when somebody comes in, I try to approach them from a natural standpoint. What is it we can do to kind of reduce your medication demands? Do you really need to be on that medication? Is there some way that I can adjust that? And so what we do is I wrote a book a few years ago that chronic excessive inflammation underlies all chronic disease. And to my knowledge, I'm the second guy who wrote a book on the topic. And there are a lot of people who will say, oh, inflammation is bad, but then they recommend inflammatory things. And I'm thinking, either they're stupid or they're trying to deceive people. I don't know what the deal is here, right? I know the person who beat me, I had to wait for this multi-billion-dollar executive group to read my manuscript before they would publish it, because I represented them. And there was a guy who had access to publishers who beat me, who had almost no scientific references. My book has almost 900. So I really, really understand the topic of how to reduce inflammation. And so when a patient comes in, I look at them naturally. What can I do to reduce their inflammation? If I'm reducing their inflammation, then I can reduce a lot of the medications they're on and their risk of a lot of problems. Sometimes I got to dip over here, but I try not to. And so now, how could we have that in the current model? How could you have that kind of an office in the current model? You can't. That's where direct primary care comes from. And I'm talking about this for you guys individually, but also for a business, and you're going to understand that in a second. Because when you understand this concept, it can be tremendously powerful for your business going forward, okay? Save you a ton of money and help lock in employees that everybody is having trouble keeping right now. I understand that business aspect, okay? Now, it's a paradigm shift, so you have to think outside the box. So what direct primary care is that it doesn't accept insurance and it doesn't accept Medicare. It's all based on memberships, okay? So people pay a monthly membership to be a part of the office, okay? So just to let you know, and I'm not talking about just our office, there are other direct primary care offices that are opening up around the nation. In fact, you can go to the, I think it's the American Academy of Family Practitioners website, and they have tutorials on how to start a DPC. So this is a national trend that's going on because of what we've been through. People are looking for alternatives, okay? So we're not the only ones doing this, but I'm glad we found out about it 2 years ago because we've learned a lot about how to do this thing. And so, so what you want to do, the way it's funded, is people paying a little bit of money every month whether they come in or not. Well, don't you do that with the insurance company? Yeah, but you pay them a ton. And if you don't like how you're being treated, you're paying them a ton for nothing, right? Okay, but what does it do when it's a local control, it's a local business, we can really reduce our prices. So the cost for a primary in a family is $100 a month, spouse $75, and a child $29 a month, maxing out at $250, because we didn't want to penalize people who have 10 children. So the most a family will pay, no matter how many children they have or how many visits they have, is $250 a month, okay? But that's for office visits, okay? Then you're thinking, well, what about catastrophic? What if I have a car wreck, or I need a surgery, or I have a heart attack? Well, that's what are called cost-sharing organizations that cover all of that, and I'll talk about that in a minute, okay? But before we But what I'd like to have everybody do is when you think of established healthcare, what are some of the things that come up that you don't like, that you're not thrilled with?
High prices.
What's that?
High prices.
Exactly. What else?
Makes it low where you have to go to a certain doctor.
Yep. We were promised we could go to our own doctor, and then all of a sudden that went away, didn't it? Not knowing what something's going to cost. Yeah. How many people have received bills 9 months later? Like, what? I thought I paid for this. Yeah?
Yeah, but just the deductibles and then the co-pay are the worst.
Absolutely. So here you're thinking you're getting a monthly fee, and then, but you've got a $5,000 deductible. So that monthly fee is really not paying squat until you pay $5,000 or whatever, or $10,000 or whatever your deductible is. Right.
I resist going to the doctor because they're drug focused, not health focused.
Right.
And I'd rather just focus everything on nutrition.
Yep.
And Eastern medicine, stuff like that, just natural medicine, stuff like that, because too many doctors are brainwashed into the pharma system.
And I'll tell you, I didn't realize how brainwashed I was until I got out of the system. I mean, you're kind of taught, well, this is what you should do, and this is how it's done. Now, is all of established medicine bad? No. Again, there's a core over here of some really good stuff, right? But we've run into some excesses that aren't good. Anything else? Anyone? Yeah.
I'm skeptical of the established medical system, the incentives that doctors have to prescribe vaccines and drugs and all that other stuff.
And get paid for it.
Right.
It's so funny because I'd heard people were having that done, and I thought, how come I've never get paid? Oh, in between emergency and preventive medicine, I had a family practice, myself and another doctor. We had over 8,000 patients. So in that time period, I was seeing 30 to 35 a day. There weren't hospitalists, there weren't intensivists. So I was admitting people to ICU, I was admitting people to the hospital, and I was assisting in surgeries. I've assisted in thousands of surgeries. I mean, it was like busy as can be, and I'm thinking, who are these guys that are getting all of this money that people are talking about? Because I was working like a dog, and somehow they had connections I didn't have. But yeah, it does exist, absolutely. Any other? Yeah.
Well, lack of real options and lack of a true informed consent a lot of the time.
No, you're absolutely right. In other words, just do this. And what you're often told is that if you don't do that, that's against medical care. That's against medical standards. What's the matter with you? Isn't that right? And so, and it's reactively focused instead of proactive. In other words, oh my gosh, you got chest pain. We better do something about it, right? But there's a lot of things where we can do that, and I've been doing this for 30 years, that we can head stuff off to 10, 20, 30 years in advance, right? Rather than going, whoops, wow, gee, you got diabetes, that kind of a thing. Restrictive, I get reports from patients coming in the office that that, oh, supplements are a waste of time, they're placebos, you don't know squat. Holy mackerel, there are thousands of studies I've reviewed over the last 30 years. There's tremendous science, and just because you don't know about it doesn't mean it's a placebo. You're demonstrating your ignorance when you say stuff like that, right? Pharmaceutically based is mentioning, threatening, it's either our way or get out of my office. You know, you're a non-compliant patient, right? I mean, I get people coming in saying that all the time. I'm here because I was kicked out of my practice. Well, thank you very much. You didn't choose me. I'm like the only thing left, right? Okay. Little or no say in your health care. And what do you think about 10-minute appointments? Do you guys love those? You know? Like they're looking at the computer while they're talking to you or whatever, or they have someone in the background, and it's like, okay, that's it. Let's get it over with, and here's what we're going to do, and I'll see you in 4 months, right? Okay. And that's pretty much. So in reality, do you love that system, or are you tolerating it? Okay. I think most of us are tolerating it. Very few people go, I love my health care. That isn't a phrase I hear anymore. I start wondering about them mentally, actually, if I did see. No, anyway. Okay, do you really use it or have it just in case of a catastrophic event which would bankrupt you? And I know a lot of people have told me that. Is, well, you got to have insurance, and I never go see them. I never do what they tell me to do. I don't trust what they're telling me, but boy, if I get into a car wreck, I'd be wiped out. All right? Okay, now there's another alternative. See, that's the point where this can be tremendously powerful for everybody. What if there was a health care that would save the average family of four $7,000 to $8,000 annually? Okay, and I've got some statistics to show you. Allow you to be in control of your health and have people respect your choices so that when you came in the door, you'd feel safe. You wouldn't be browbeaten for any decisions that are made. That implement true preventive medicine, incorporate natural over pharmaceutical whenever possible. I spend most of my time taking people off of medications. They can still protect you from catastrophic events, have unlimited visits per month, no deductibles or copays, and then you're only charged beyond that membership what the practice is charged. So if we order labs, then, and there's different pathways of going with labs, because what we do is we give the ICD-10 codes so that if somebody does have insurance through their work, they can still, bill their insurance for that if they want to, or they can say, I don't have insurance, and then there's a cash price that comes with the lab company, okay? But we can't pay for everybody's labs and x-rays and CAT scans and MRI scans, obviously, in America. So in other words, it's like whatever is additional, but things that don't cost us a lot of money, like suturing or casting, certain casts and all that stuff, we don't charge for because that's minimal to us. You can go to a lot of places and they'll charge $250, $300 to put on a cast or whatever. And we don't do that because we're trying to offer it, and very commonly we have 30 to 60-minute appointments instead of 10. Now the reason is because we're paid based on memberships, not based on volume. Do you understand that concept? That's huge. Now I was really good at going fast back in the 8,000 patient days. I could haul. I know how to haul, okay? But I don't like that kind of medicine, right? But now I get to sit down and delve deeper. Okay, what are the relationships in the family? What's going on in the stressors at work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden you get a different perspective after you've been talking to somebody for 30 minutes than for 10. It's amazing. And you can usually be seen in days, not months. It's very typical for people to say, well, I want to see my doctor, I've got a sinus infection, and the next available appointment is 3 months from now. Well, you might be dead from that sinus infection in 3 months. That goes on to pneumonia or whatever. No, I'm just kidding. But in other words, the ready access is not there in the current system. So now what if you as an employer could offer a DPC membership to an employee a prospective employee for an additional 60 cents an hour. Office-based healthcare. I think, how many times have you gone around town and you see signs where people say, starting off at $13 an hour, and then the next equivalent business, $14 an hour, then the next equivalent business, $15 an hour. It's all based on how many dollars per hour, right? And people are constantly turning over staff, constantly training. Training costs a lot of money. You're losing continuously money because you're constantly turning over. But what if you were able to say $13 an hour and office health care? To you, it costs you $13.60. Where did I get the 60 cents? $100 divided by 40 divided by 4.2. 4.2 weeks in a month. So a full-time employee, you can pay for office health care for 60 cents. Or if they had a family of 4, you could say, I can cover office health care for your whole family if you stay with us, and it costs you $1.49 an hour. Okay, so you're staying at $13 an hour for the employee, but where they're locked in because they're getting health care, and out of your pocket is $14.49 an hour. Okay, or whatever it is. But see, understand the concept of. Most people think, well, I can't afford health care for my employees, and and the way the government is set up, after you have so big of a company, you have to provide it, right? But I mean, most of us are small business owners who, if they had this opportunity to say, I'll tell you what, would you be interested in health care in an office? I can't cover catastrophic. And then maybe that ends up being $450 a month, or well, between $250 and $450. You might be able to, if they stay there long enough, I'll cover your catastrophic too. But do it through a cost-sharing organization, which I'm about to tell you about, okay? Do you understand how that could tremendously help business if you're offering, not just paying dollars per hour, but you're offering office health care? Not total health care, but, well, I'll tell you, in the office, when you think about it, most of your health care comes in an office, right? I mean, if you have infections and pap smears and annual physical exams and, you get injured and all of that kind of stuff, instead of having them go to an urgent care, it's all basically paid for except for the additional costs. That's how you lock people in if you can offer that kind of stuff from a small business standpoint. So when you think of insurance-based health care, it's normally office visits plus catastrophic, right? The surgeries and the hospitalization. Well, the alternative is direct primary care, because that's the office visit, and then cost-sharing organizations, which will do hospitalizations and surgeries. Now, here's a list that we put together. There's about, I don't know, I mean, we put together this list months ago. I mean, there's more than this. But I wanted to give you an idea of the cost-sharing organizations that are out there, and like Liberty and Medishare and Samaritan and Sedera, Solidarity. There's a ton of companies out there. Some are religious, some are not. There's a Catholic one, there's a non-religious one. But basically, what I did is I took the averages of all of these, and the direct primary care, the direct primary care maxes out at $250. So some of the cost-sharing organizations, you can start as low as, $290. And depending upon the family situation, how many family members, all that kind of stuff, it might be $750 a month, okay? So the average of direct primary care plus cost-sharing organizations ends up being $6,000 to $12,000 a year, or the average out at $9,600 a year for all of your health care. Okay, and the cost-sharing organizations cover anything above $500. So if you need a CAT scan or an MRI scan, they cover that. And some of them even cover stuff like if you want to do experimental stuff and go to Mexico for a treatment that you can't get here. I mean, I know of some that have paid for that. Some of the cost-sharing organizations pay for that stuff. They're willing to do it because they think outside the box, and they've done it for years. Now, we've got statistics from yourhealthidaho.org about insurance in the state of Idaho. This is a public website with the insurance companies. These are their numbers, so I'm not making these up. We got these off of the websites, but this comes from, and so the annual traditional insurance in the state of Idaho is $11,000 to $22,000 a year, plus there's co-pays and deductibles, okay? That adds out to be almost $17,000 a year, okay? So in other words, the average family of four is going to save about between $7,000 and $8,000 a year doing the DPC plus cost sharing organization. Now, some of these don't take pre-existing conditions. It's not for everyone. And some of them don't cover Medicare. But we've got a number of Medicare people who've come to our practice because they love the fact that we're able to take them off of medications. And some of you might be thinking, oh, well, I can't leave my insurance because my medicine costs thousands of dollars a month. Well, if we can change your lifestyle, your diet, put you on an inflammatory diet, we've got a program for doing that. If we can reduce inflammation, we've got videos teaching our patients how to do that. There's a lot of times we might be able to take you off of that medicine that costs thousands of dollars a month. Don't hold on to it because of the cost. Give it a try. I'm not promising that I can take everybody off of every medicine. I'm not saying that at all whatsoever. Some medicines over here are amazing and they're worth it, okay? But at the same time, though, there's a ton of people, millions of people, paying $7,000 to $8,000 more a month than they need to. That's an important point. And you want to find out if you're one of those, and you want to find out that as a business owner, maybe I could lock in some of these employees forever if I can give them office health care, okay? So office visits plus catastrophic care, $1,400 to $1,600 a month, but the direct primary care on the average is $800 to $900 a month. So that adds up to a $7,000 to $8,000 savings for basically the same thing. And you would be getting a completely different view of how you're taken care of. Instead of it being pharmaceutical based, 10-minute appointments, reactive, it would be, what can we take you off of? How can we change your lifestyle? How can we think proactively in addition to the savings? So there's no reason to suffer any longer, no reason to blow $7,000 to $8,000 in a year unless you guys are like incredibly wealthy. I don't know, I'm not incredibly wealthy, but it's time to take control of the healthcare. So this is, Heart of Hope. We're in Hayden. There's other direct primary cares, but I was most focused on helping you understand the concept because maybe we're not for you. Maybe one of the other direct primary cares is, but we want to give people the freedom to be based on, to get health care based on individual needs rather than nationally. And we want to combine the most effective natural with the most reliable modern. And some of my staff is here if you guys are interested in learning more. Are there any questions?
So it sounds like you're describing a system that incentivizes, better health so that we're less, addicted or less reliant on medicines, which, just adds costs. Would you say that the established medical system incentivizes poor health so that we become, reliant on medications that, make profits for pharmaceutical companies?
The question is, we emphasize natural and preventive. Would I say that established medicine emphasizes pharmaceutical almost from the point of view of enhancing health problems so that they can make further money down the road from that? I know I've heard people say that, but see, I was in that system myself, and I'll tell you, it's almost like there's a mass, it's almost like a mass brainwashing to some degree, because when you're in med school, you had to work like a dog to get there. Like I did nothing of any fun throughout my undergraduate career because there was always somebody studying somewhere at UCLA that I just couldn't relax hardly, And then when you get in, it's like Nobel Prize winners and speakers and all that stuff, and you're in awe because it's kind of like, Hollywood, you made it, you're now, you've reached your lifelong dream and goal. And so initially everybody, what they say is this is right. They're brilliant. They know more than me. I need to listen. I can't wait to get more information from them. So I don't think it's really purposeful. I mean, really, it's almost like you're mesmerized. And you're mesmerized all through your training, and then you get into the real world, and you go, well, wait, well, that's not true, or that didn't happen, or whatever. And so I don't think anyone, or very many people, started with that in mind. But the way healthcare has gone, see, remember I was saying I used to be in that position where the doctors were the king of medicine. And literally in that time period, I mean, I had 3 hospitals begging for our business at our family practice. I mean, because we were the biggest practice in the area, and that would mean hundreds of thousands of dollars if I sent them our heart patients, if I sent them our surgeries. And so they were saying, come on over to our hospital and look at our cafeteria and look at our new surgery suite and look at all of the great things we're doing. They were begging me. And then all of a sudden we got a letter from one of the famous insurance companies that said, and we'd had no trouble with them, and every doctor I know have got the letter at the same time in Southern California, that we've decided to change what we pay you from $55 a visit to $35. And immediately, I was working as hard as I could as a human, and immediately we were losing $10,000 a month. And I thought, okay, I'll sell the practice then, okay? And these 3 hospitals all of a sudden wanted to buy our practice. Wow, that's amazing. And so we went out and got people to find out how our practice, you know, what the going cost was, what it was worth and everything like that. And we were being offered $400,000 less than the going price. And I said, no way. And another month went by, and another month went by, and an offer from another one, $400,000 less. And I'm thinking, no, one of the others were going to pay a higher price. Third one, $400,000 less. How did they all agree on the same price? These are competitors with one another. Finally, we sold out to the biggest one for $400,000 less, and then I was mandated to stay there for 3 years, and in 3 years and in 1 day, I said goodbye, okay? I no longer was in the king of medicine. I no longer was in control. I no longer had the power to do anything. They owned me. The hospital system owned me. And so I think a lot of people are stuck in that. They don't mean to do badly, but at the same time, if you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, you can't afford to lose your job either. It's everything you got. Yeah.
So, is this working? Just to kind of piggyback on what Brian just said, you know, you go into the doctors and you know, you've heard this a million times, where they're not taught about nutrition and they're trying to make the most money and so on and so forth. And the pharmaceutical reps come in and say, here, give them this
Yep.
will fix this.
Yep.
But we know that there are so many side effects, and the doctors very glibly, in my opinion, say, oh, that only happens in 10% of patients,
Yeah,
or 20%. I'm sorry, but that's a little bit too much.
No, exactly. No, the question was a follow-up from the previous question, and that is that the emphasis is so much on pharmaceuticals, and then when the doctor offers it, there's so many known side effects and then the doctor kind of blows off the idea of side effects, and that's just hard to swallow. Well, there's a famous drug company who came out with a blood pressure lowering medication about in the early 90s, okay? And we were told that the side effect of that was ankle swelling that only occurred in 3% of people, okay? I started writing for that medicine, learned a lesson from this, but I started writing for that medicine because it was the new hottest medicine that was out there, right? Boys, you know, hardly any side effects, and everyone's blood pressure looks great. All of a sudden I was getting phone calls like mad because everyone was complaining, seemingly, of their ankles swelling, okay? So I called in the drug rep, and I said, wait a minute. You said on here 30% or 3%, and I'll bet it's easily 30% of my practice. And see, as a doctor in that scenario, you don't want calls. you don't want drugs to mess you up because that just means more time for me. I'm working like a dog and then I go home and have to take phone calls all night about a side effect. And so that's why I called in the drug rep. What's the truth? What's the research? No, honest. And I said, so you mean to tell me that the people in this city, there's something in the water that's making that happen? I said that literally to him, and he said, yes, doctor, that's the truth. There must be something about your city because nationally it's 3%. Well, that pharmaceutical company was sued about 2 or 3 years later because it was truly 30%. What I was experiencing was what was real. So it's funny because there's a colleague pressure that's a peer pressure. That's like, well, I'm doing this and with my patients, and oh, have you heard about this? Have you heard about that? Yeah, no, this is great. Well, you should try this. I mean, so there's this whole world of communication among doctors. So I'm not trying to say doctors are bad. I mean, in an awful lot of sense, it's really true. They're victims of a gigantic system that they are 100% dependent upon. And so I feel sorry for a lot of them. And they kind of just don't want to see it sometimes. You know, oh, no, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that because then it's going to be more work for me. I don't want, and so unfortunately that happens. Any others?
Yeah, so it's just looking at the history of the country, you had the 1800s, they put in sewer systems and water systems, and health and longevity just was on a upward trajectory.
Right.
How would you describe the trajectory today? Is it on a downward trend in terms of just overall health?
How would I describe the health trajectory in the United States today is on a downward trend. It always used to be on the upward. The answer is absolutely on a downward trend. For the last 3 or 4 years in a row, national statistics show that the longevity has flattened or decreased.
So you think that happened in the last 4 years, it started to go down?
Yep. Yep.
So my family already has Liberty Health Share, family of 4. We pay about $750 a month, and we really we have no health issues right now, so everybody's happy and healthy and life is good. Are we already about as low as we can get our expenses, with Liberty, not using a traditional plan? But that's why we chose Liberty 8 years ago, almost 9, because it was 8 years ago. It was half the price of Blue Cross. And it's not perfect because
Right.
Their back office can be a total nightmare and reimbursements are a pain. But hey, we're paying $750 a month for 4 people.
Right.
That's a heck of a deal,
No,
in my opinion.
Absolutely. One of the questions was somebody who has been on a cost-sharing organization for 7 or 8 years, and they're paying for a family of 4? Yeah. For a family of 4, they're paying $700 to $800 a month for the catastrophic. Everyone's doing well. Yeah, the company isn't operating perfectly, but at the same time, none of the big ones operate perfectly either. We all know and have wrestled with that as well. And so, in other words, his family is an example of what I'm trying to share with everyone, that there's a lot we can do to save ourselves a lot of money and end up being healthier proactively, preventatively, naturally. And I hope you all check into it from this talk.
I'm going to ask a question, but piggybacking, you were asking at your $750 for a family of 4, can it go any lower, right? That was the question.
Yeah, I mean, I was,
Is it kind of the lowest you can go?
Yeah.
Liberty, and then you have no catastrophic.
Well, no, I mean, Liberty is in that list of about 12 to 13 companies. The question is Liberty the lowest you can go? On that list of 12 or 13 different companies, I'd call all 12 or 13 and say, here's our scenario. What would your charge be for our family? That's just like competing. Let them compete with one another.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to ask a question, and I think Nels is going to jump in. But my question to you is, from business perspectives, we think about things like scalability, right? So I think what you're saying is $250 for a family, and they can have up to 10 kids, right?
Right.
Are you guys, has there come a point where the membership says, oh, we're not taking on any more people because we've hit our limits?
That's a great question. The question is there a scalability? Is there a point where we would say we're not taking on more people? Actually, no, because when we designed it from scratch, we kind of thought that this is a concept that it's sooner or later it's going to hit. People are going to say, you know, why should I pay an extra 7 to 8 grand a year and be seen for 10 minutes once every 4 months and told to take something I don't want to take? I mean, the whole list, right? Sooner or later, people are going to say, what am I doing? I'm changing. And so what we decided to do is create everything we did when we started our practice. We thought, thinking it from a franchise, from an expansion model. So as we've grown, we've got like 2,500 patients now, and we're growing. And we're adding new healthcare practitioners. And so what we're doing is we've got other cities that are interested in having us go. But so we'd be able, in essence, to franchise out and take our system and just say, hey, you know, if you're interested in renting someplace in another city or whatever, we will franchise our model to you so that you hire your own healthcare practitioners, et cetera, because we've learned a lot in this time period and we can help you do it. And so we've designed it so it can't be capped.
You have a staff here,
Yes.
and you can take questions.
Yeah.
So for those that need to get back to business, let's go ahead and close this out. Please, let's thank Dr. Duke.
Thank you. Thank you. And one person I'd like to point out is my co-founder, Mariah Kaysen. She's